What is going on, everybody? It is your observant lineman here, Uche Nwaneri. Welcome to Lineman Life Live. We are in it today. It's June 9th, Wednesday. And we are, it's been a little bit slow of a news week in sports generally, but still some things to talk about. We're going to start off today talking about this is probably something that hasn't really blown the lid off the headlines yet, but it looks like it'll be due for that here soon. Oh, got my new chair here, got my new gaming chair, so had a little comfy head pillow there that I was using, but so the MLB is having a big issue right now. Pitchers in Major League Baseball and the accessories, we'll say, that they use when they're pitching. Now, we've seen instances where in the past pitchers have been frowned upon for using certain sticky substances that actually allow them to spin the baseball and to throw it in ways that maybe they wouldn't be able to do quite as effectively if they were not spreading this Spider-Tack over their balls. Now, I know how that sounds, but we're going to take a look here at an article to kind of give us the lowdown, give us an understanding of what's going on from just an outside perspective, and then we're gonna look at a video that I think is pretty interesting when it comes to players themselves addressing the situation. But let's take a look here at this article from CBSSports.com. Yankees, Gerrit Cole, Astros, Justin Verlander, Nats, Max Scherzer, accused of doctoring baseballs in lawsuit. Now, this is a lawsuit that's been brought against Major League Baseball, and it looks to be a specific team here. We'll get into it. Looks like maybe the Angels. But it says ex-Angels clubhouse attendant Bubba Harkins named names. Snitching. You snitch. In the latest phase of his lawsuit against the team and MLB. So he's filed a lawsuit against the Angels, Bubba Harkins, and the article goes a little something like this. Aces Gerrit Cole, Justin Verlander, and Max Scherzer are among numerous well-known pitchers to have been implicated in using a grip-enhancing substance by former Angels clubhouse attendant Bubba Harkins in a lawsuit against the team and Major League Baseball that accuses them of making him a scapegoat. Harkins, who was fired last March as the league started to crack down on the use of foreign substances, filed a text message from Cole as evidence in opposition to a request to dismiss the original lawsuit submitted by Harkins' attorneys in August. So there was a request to dismiss the original lawsuit. And he filed this text message as evidence of to corroborate what he says is proof that there was some cheating going on here with these MLB pitchers. Now, look, I'm not an MLB guy. I'm not going to sit here in front like I know about the MLB like that, because I just don't. But there are certain things that transcend sports lines that go across all the way across different leagues of professional sports, and cheating is definitely one of them. So we're going to take a look here. It says Cole's message to Harkins is from January 2019, and it reads, quote, "Hey Bubba, it's Gerrit Cole. I was wondering if you could help me out with this sticky situation." Winky smile emoji. We don't see you until May, but we have some road games in April that are in cold weather places. The stuff I had last year seizes up when it gets cold. Harkins was known around the league for providing pitchers with a grip-enhancing concoction as a courtesy that was made from a mixture of pine tar and rosin, a recipe he first learned from a longtime Angels closer, Troy Percival. Though using substances, including but not limited to pine tar and suntan lotion, has been a long accepted, if not technically legal, aspect of pitching, MLB issued a memo in February 2020 disavowing the practice. Harkin's suit claims that he did not receive the memo and thus didn't receive a proper warning before his firing. Pitchers have long argued that their use of grip enhancing substance is, in part, a safety measure, with their improved control curbing the potential for hit batsmen or otherwise erratic throws. Harkin's lawsuit claims that his dismissal has left him unemployable and notes that no other individual has been punished for similar reasons. So, as we take in the information here, absorb some data about the situation. I see my boy Ryan Kennel, RK Outpost. What's up, Ryan? He's over here saying this story has been going on for a few years, but it's only recently getting publicity. And I kind of realize that. I kind of see that this is not something. I mean, we've heard about these instances where pitchers have had like a brown substance on the baseball, and it's kind of. I was confused the first time I saw it because it was making all these headlines on the sports channels like ESPN, Fox Sports. They were talking about this years back. I mean, a few years at least. And, I was confused because it really, to me, I looked at what they were accusing, and I looked at how umpires and managers and pitchers, would congregate on the mound and they would look at the ball. And sometimes, they would take the baseball and have them bring in a new one and have them pitch with that, or they just pull them off the field and they can't finish out their, they're penalized, I guess, quote unquote penalized for having, a foreign substance on the ball. Now, of course, the excuse that's being used by the pitchers in this situation is that, well, we need better control of the ball, and we use this so that we have more control over how we pitch so that we lessen the occurrence of erratic throws and potentially dangerous throws that hit, batters, guys who are batting. And it's crazy because to me, I hear that and I think to myself, well, isn't it just so convenient that you would use an additive to the ball and say that you need this to be able to pitch right? But that's like saying a receiver can put stickum on his gloves so that he can catch the ball better, so he can better control a ball in flight to keep possession of it. Okay, I hear what you're saying, but that's cheating because your gloves don't come with stickum on it. The baseball doesn't come with Spider-Tack on it. It doesn't come with that on it. So if you can't pitch, how did you make it through your career pitching baseballs and make it to this ultimate level of professional baseball? And you mean to tell me you can't pitch without having something on the ball that allows you to pitch better? Well, yeah. Yeah, that's what we're saying. That's nonsense to me. It's a convenient excuse, of course, but it's not legitimate. I mean, come on. That's ridiculous. That's like, yeah, I took steroids because if I take steroids, then I'm going to be stronger and I won't get injured as much and I can last longer on the football field. So yeah, why not? Why not? Why not give myself the best advantage possible, even if it's not a natural advantage? That's where, for me, I've always had an issue because, for me, and this is just my experience as a pro, even going back to high school, like I was never a big weightlifting guy. I didn't like lifting weights. I didn't lift at all in high school. I lifted in college because we were forced to lift. And when I got to the NFL, I lifted, but the lifting in the NFL was much different than the lifting in college. Lifting in college was like powerlifting, like unbelievably like unhealthy lifting for your body. Just, a note for all the guys out there who are playing college ball or have aspirations of playing college ball. Pay attention to what they're having to do, because their lifting program in college, the way it's done, it's not the right way to lift weights. But I digress. To me, this situation here is just literally it's literally exposing that these guys aren't as good of pitchers as you think they are. They're good. They're better because they're cheating to be better. Now, if you're going to look at this and say, hey, it's an accepted and technically legal tradition, well, then why don't the batters have something that allows them to hit that ball further and harder and with more impact when you pitch it? That would balance the playing field for a product to be made that can actually allow for for them to get more out of their swing. When you hear about corked bats, when you hear about baseball players who have hollowed out the inner part of their bat so that they can smash balls through the rafters, nobody has a problem looking at that and saying that that's cheating. You can't do that. You're giving yourself an advantage. You're giving yourself something over your opponent that's not natural. And that, in what I'm saying, is that this is just a bunch of bullshit. But let's go even further here. Let's look at this video, and credit to Baseball Caliente RD. They're the ones who posted this video on YouTube. But this is a quick interview with Yankees ace Gerrit Cole, where he's asked straight up, are you using or have you ever used Spider-Tack? Let's listen in and let's hear what they got to say.
Have you ever used Spider-Tack while pitching?
I don't.
God damn, already. He got caught off guard with that one. He's like, yeah, think about this for a second before you answer, because whatever you say at this point, moving forward, is literally what you're going to be held to for the rest of your career in regards to whether you're a cheater or not. So tread carefully here, my friend.
I don't know. I don't know if I don't quite know how to answer that, to be honest.
God damn. You know what? I will give him this. If you are stuck and they got you cornered like that in questioning, that's really the best thing you can say. I don't know how to fucking answer that, buddy. What you want me to say? Yeah.
I mean, there are customs and practices that have been passed down from older players to younger players, from the last generation of players to this generation of players. And
I tell you what, usually when an athlete is put in a position like this, and this is really all credit to Gerrit Cole. I mean, hey, regardless of what I think about the actual use of this substance, of the Spider-Tack, to actually give them an advantage in the game, he's navigating this fairly well right now. A lot of times you see players, they get a little bit panicky, they start stumbling over their words, they start stuttering, and they can't really figure out where they're going with this. But they do not want to say yes, because if they say yes, they're fucked. And I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a team lawyer standing on the other side of where that camera is, just like, don't say nothing, don't say nothing. And he's just thinking, but he's handling this, he's navigating it fair right now, fair.
you know, I think there are some things that are certainly out of bounds in that regard, and and I've stood pretty firm in terms of that, in terms of the communication between our peers and whatnot. And I, again, like I mentioned earlier, there's, this is important to a lot of people that love the game, and this is including the players in this room, including fans, including, teams. And so if MLB wants to, legislate some more stuff, that's a conversation that we can have, because ultimately we should all be pulling in the same direction on this.
Okay, so he gave a non-answer. He didn't answer it. I mean, did we expect him to answer it? I wouldn't have expected him to answer it. But at least he didn't make himself look stupid. He didn't make himself look dumb. But some things that he said that you have to listen to, and you have to understand that as a player, there is two sides to this dilemma that he's in with this question. One is, goddamn well, yes, you have. It's on film. You can see this stuff in the games. You can tell when you look at the ball because the ball looks like it has mud on it. But that's something that's already known. That's something that he doesn't need to say. But if he actually verbalizes in any way that he does use any substance that is not authorized, which there really isn't any substance that you're supposed to put on the baseball, if he comes out and he says that, he is going to be a target in the court of public opinion as we watch the lawsuit that's been filed against the Angels and the MLB. As we watch that progress, he's going to be brought up all the time. Well, this is what he said. This is what he said. And that will definitely create a distraction on his professional side. Now, on the other side of that, you have the locker room. If you come out and you actually expose willingly to the media, of all people, I mean, you're not even being forced to really answer the question. You're not under oath or nothing. But if you come out and you actually acknowledge and say, yes, I've been using this substance as a pitcher, and it's something that has been used by many other pitchers and many other players over past generations, well, now you just crossed the line in locker room etiquette, in that brotherhood that you have as a member of a team. You don't snitch on your teammates. And yes, I know, hey, that's a double standard. Well, if he's cheating, why not say it? Well, hey, you can say it. But as soon as he says it, his reputation amongst his peers will go through the ground. It will crater out in a heartbeat. You can't come out and actually acknowledge that. And I think that's where most of his struggle, most of his pause in answering that question came from, was the fact that if I answer this wrong, then it's going to be my reputation as a player amongst my peers, amongst the pitchers in this league, that are going to shun me. That's what's going to happen. That's part of the culture. That's part of the culture in team sports. There is always a line that is set in terms of individual players exposing or, basically letting the cat out of the bag, snitching on anything that's considered controversial amongst your teammates, especially if it's something which, in this situation, that practice of putting shit on their ball has been something that's been done for a while, for a long time, and it's been known by a lot of people, both in the locker room and outside the locker room, from umpires to fucking fans. We've all seen it. So there's really not, there's nothing that you're going to say that's going to change what people already know and people already perceive about the entire situation. So save yourself and save your reputation from any real damage by not really giving a good answer, not really giving an answer. Don't say yes, don't say no. I mean, hey, he did it the way that if you had to answer that question like he did just now, that's probably the best way to answer it. Keep yourself from being put in that in that box as a snitch on one end and then being held up as a pariah on the other end by the media, because that's what they're going to do to you. They're going to smear you from left to right all the way around until there is an actual judgment and an actual response from Major League Baseball itself. Then you're gonna be in for a long ride, and it's not gonna be pretty. It's not gonna be pretty. But there's another article here that actually goes into the crackdown that the MLB is having on these baseballs that are being altered by the pitchers. We're gonna get into that article here. But as I'm sitting here looking, I see Chris V says, bring back the juice. I mean, shit. Baseball just has a long history of a lot of shady shit that goes on that can be considered, cheating within the game. I mean, I don't necessarily know the culture of baseball, but I think that in a team sports setting, you really do have cultures that are set, that have been there for a while. And there's not really a written rule on it, but if you're somebody looking from the outside, it could seem like something that's an unfair advantage. So looking at this article, it says MLB is poised to begin cracking down on pitchers using doctored baseballs. Baseball's foreign substance reckoning is here. Major League Baseball, after decades of looking the other way, is poised to begin cracking down on pitchers using foreign substances after a fact-finding mission earlier in the 2021 season determined the problem is widespread enough to warrant intervention. So there's something that you got to pay attention to as well. They're only intervening in this because it's become literally the norm. It is what's happening across the board. And I mean, I would assume that every pitcher on every team likely uses some kind of foreign substance on their baseballs. I think it's safe to say that, just reading this first paragraph. Team owners voted to move forward with the crackdown last week. In the days since, several notable pitchers have shown reduced spin rates, a trait that can be enhanced with the right sticky stuff. Data. Yankees ace Gerrit Cole, who was recently accused of doctoring baseballs in a lawsuit, was down about 6% across the board with his spin rates during his most recent start Thursday, when he allowed 5 runs in 5 innings against the Rays. Here are Cole's average spin rates by start this season. These are all pitches lumped together. So, RPM, I mean, he was getting up and this is 2 months ago. 2 months ago, he was getting damn near 2580 RPM, rotations per minute, on his pitches. And then that shot down by mid-April to 2,500. And then it creeped back up there. But you see, I think this is the point where it was actually, there was actually an action taken to prevent them from using any kind of doctored shit on their baseballs. And you see his his rotations per minute crater. They crater. So what happens? I would assume that if you can getting such a high level of rotation on your pitches at that velocity and speed allow you to actually shape your pitch in ways that you really can't do it without probably throwing out your elbow or your shoulder if you don't have extra grip that allows you to actually apply pressure in the throw and the release. So, as you can see, just without having that on, he gave up 5 hits in 5 innings. So batters are able to actually catch up. So that kind of leads me to believe that it is an unfair advantage because higher rotation, higher velocity, harder to hit. That's how I think about it. Harder to hit. But it was an unwritten rule. Like I said, they were allowed to do this for so long. But, I think that with the MLB turning a blind eye, that it's their fault for first and foremost for not actually addressing it when they found out. and they allowed it to become part of the culture. So it's almost like at this point you can't really make it something that's banned in the game. You can't do that. You've already allowed it to actually root itself in part of what playing baseball is for these professionals. It's part of the game at this point. So how do you actually go back and say, no, we're not going to do that? Now, of course they can, but it's going to affect the game. Well, what way will it affect the game? We don't know. I mean, I think if guys are able to hit balls more, then you're going to see probably an uptick in the level of excitement of baseball games in general. That's going to put more pressure on the pitchers to be more precise with their pitches. They're going to be more conservative in their pitch calling and what kind of pitches they throw. It's going to turn back into a chess match rather than an arcade shooter. These guys have been basically bulldozing through. I mean, how many times? Remember when a no-hitter was like damn near unheard of? Like no-hitters were far in few and far between. Like decades. Like it took long times. Like guys would be considered an elite level pitcher. You know, they would be propelled into an elite status simply from throwing a no-hitter. You would see the updates on like ESPN on the bottom ticker. They'd be keeping up with a guy who was close to a no-hitter. And then all of a sudden, and I remember this again because that is what makes the headline. Not that I was watching baseball games, but that's what makes the headline. I saw more and more over the years. You see just more and more no-hitters. And, you know, it's kind of like, are guys just getting that much better? Or the batters just not as good as they used to be? Well, I think we know now that there was an X factor that actually played into that really, you know, worked to the favor of the pitchers. And that was that they could alter their baseballs so that they can throw better pitches. So they can be, you know, they can throw with such precision and such control that batters who largely swinging the bat, I would assume, while complicated, hasn't changed much in the last, 100 years. But their style and their ability to hit balls has not really changed. The way in which they hit balls and the tools that they take up to hit balls have all stayed the same. They get a bat, and it has to be a certain kind of bat. Can't have it altered, and you got to swing with it. While the pitcher is swinging with is pitching with an altered ball. So that clearly shows that you've been allowing pitchers to play with an advantage for years. So it's almost like, okay, too many people know about it now. Too many people are starting to complain about it. We gotta ban it, even though we know it's been going on forever. That just seems kind of weak to me. Now here's a quote here. It says, is it a coincidence that Gerrit Cole's spin rate numbers went down Thursday after 4 minor leaguers got suspended for 10 games? Twins third baseman Josh Donaldson told reporters, including the Athletics' Dan Hayes, referring to MLB's recent crackdown on foreign substances in the minors. Is that possible? I don't know. Maybe. At the same time, with this situation, they've let guys do it. And I think that's a great point that's made, pretty easily right there. I mean, this is common sense. Let's be real. This is common sense, folks. This is common sense. If you're going to let them get away with throwing balls that are altered, and you're going to let them, skirt the rules or rather operate outside of the rules without actually giving them, giving more guidance as to what is actually allowed, then it's hard to come back and be surprised when you see that it's actually affecting pitches. It's actually affecting their pitches, which means it's going to change the entire perception of what is a good pitcher. Because you can't be a good pitcher, or you can't be as good as your numbers have been unless you have something that gives you an edge. But as a pure pitcher that uses nothing on their ball, you can see that it is much different in terms of their success as a pitcher and in terms of their control as a pitcher. That's going to affect not only every pitcher who's in the MLB right now, but it's going to affect prospects. It's going to affect, kids who are coming from high school and college, because once this happens, and I'm not sure, I don't know how the NCAA handles that, but I know once MLB says, okay, this is banned, then every division of baseball, every level of baseball below the MLB will also probably follow suit. So it'll be taken out of the game completely, and then you'll start seeing more in-line stats with pitchers and how well and how consistent they can pitch, because consistency level is going to come down. The velocity of their pitches are going to come down. The control of their pitches, the variety of their pitches are going to shrink, because they're not going to be able to throw some of those pitches because they can't throw them without having an extra advantage to give them that edge. And I think that, hey, that's fair. That's fair, but I think you're in a gray area because you've allowed it, as the MLB, you've allowed it to happen for so long. It's a part of the game. When this guy's talking about a generation of players before him were doing this, you're talking about 10 years. Every 10 years, you could say, is a generation of a sport, because you get a completely new flock of players that, kind of replace the veterans that are now retiring, depending on the length of their careers. But I think that this is definitely going to be something that's going to be, it's going to be addressed with an official rule, with an official, declaration about this. And look, if I'm the MLB, I honestly would ban any substance from being used to alter the ball that isn't provided by Major League Baseball. So if they're willing to, if they're looking at this situation and saying, hey, we don't want these guys going and getting their own stuff and putting it on the ball, why don't we create a product, or we have a company create a product that minimally gives better grip on the baseball to kind of serve as a substitute, which then we can say there is something provided if you want to have a better grip, and we provide it. And if you use anything that's not, been officially something that hasn't been approved by the MLB, then you're going to be suspended. You're going to be fined. I think that's the best way to handle it, if you're going to handle it, because, you don't crush that culture that you allowed to become part of your game. And at the same time, you create another stream of revenue for the league, and you actually create a new sector of industry that will grow as part of that. You're going to have now third-party companies that are going to specifically specialize in creating things to spec based on how the MLB says this is all you can do. This is what we're going to allow, and this is what you have to build your product based on. So there's going to be a level. It's going to be the same thing for everybody, and it's going to take away some of that edge, but it's going to, if you're going, because you allowed it to happen, you can't just take it away. It's too late for that. You're way behind the curve on that. So, with this, you're now able to monetize it. You're now able to actually give it a lane without allowing it to majorly affect the ability of batters to hit the ball the way that it did, as kind of an underground thing that pitchers do. So I see that as a way to move past it. But, I think that for all intents and purposes, it is cheating to put anything on the baseball. It's cheating. But sometimes, hey, at least in Major League Baseball's situation, you're gonna have to play ball a little bit with this one, because it'll affect a lot more than they think if they all out ban it. But you can ban that outside use of any kind of custom product for an official MLB licensed product that you can make money off of. And at the end of the day, I think they care more about getting that money than what a pitcher's putting on his baseball. So shit. That's that. Moving on. We have Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson, as we all know, as we all have witnessed, is going through his own little saga right now. He's going through his little saga with the whole massage parlor therapist thing. I don't know what to call it, but it's a civil. He's got a litany of civil cases against him, and it's really been a true just tsunami of bad news, bad public perception of him now. And he's in a bitter dispute with the Houston Texans. He's trying to get the hell out of Houston. I think that before all this stuff went down, I think that really Deshaun coming out of last season was easily the kind of player that was going to force a couple of first-round picks to get him in a trade once it was known that he wanted to leave. Couple first-round picks, maybe a player as well. Couple first-round picks, maybe a mid-rounder or a couple mid-rounders as well. But he was a hot commodity. It was going to be a high price to get Deshaun Watson out of Houston. Now, the way I look at it, I mean, I don't think there's any other way that this ends, because there is such bad blood between him and the Houston Texans. And now, on top of that, there is this image problem that he has in the NFL as a player because of the off the field stuff that's really that's a bad look for him. It's a really bad look. Nobody is denying that in any way. I think it's a bad look. But Deshaun Watson actually came out and he had something to say. Well, he didn't say it, but it is being reported that Deshaun Watson wants to be a Denver Bronco. Now, I know That's Good Sports is hyped about that. Now he's got two top-tier elite quarterbacks who it looks like Denver would be the appropriate landing place for. And honestly, I think Deshaun Watson in Denver would make them a legitimate playoff contender instantly. I think they've got a young squad. I think they've got a solid players. But I also think that they're missing the biggest piece, and I think everybody knows they're missing the biggest piece that's needed for that franchise to move forward, and that's a quarterback that they can rely on. Right now, they don't have that. They don't have that right now. Now, they're going to need a little bit of help on defense, but, we're talking about the offense here. As a team, if they have a guy like Deshaun Watson or even, potentially Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, I think that changes the entire momentum of the franchise. I think it changes their offense, instantly. They become a much more threatening offense. And, at the end of the day, is it worth the money? Yeah, I think it's worth the money. I think if Denver is not 100%, if they are not 100% certain that they have the quarterbacks right now that will lead them into the future, that will lead this team into the playoffs and to compete for a championship, if they do not believe that they have 100% those guys at the quarterback position on their roster right now, then they need to make a move. They need to start making trades, restructuring contracts, or they need to start putting up draft picks. I mean, Deshaun Watson, he's not old. He is literally he is in the first few years of his prime. He has literally got a decade of prime football, barring injury, barring some sudden drop-off. He has got a decade left of damn good prime-level football. And if you watch the kid last year, man, he was playing on a terrible team, and he was damn near pulling off a win every week. It was him. He still was the third. I think he had the highest QBR at the end of the season in the NFL. Highest completion percentage. I think he had, those two stats. Correct me if I'm wrong. I may be wrong on that. But Deshaun Watson is elite, period. Full stop. He's an elite cat. So if you see anything with quotes around it saying wants to be a Denver Bronco, Denver would be a fool not to start addressing that right now, today. It's been 5 hours since this tweet went out? I mean, if I'm the GM or the guy who's making the calls in Denver, in the last 5 hours, I already convinced the owner that we giving up the next 2 years' first-round picks. We giving them up. We'll pay his contract. We don't give a fuck. We're going to pay the contract. We're going to give up the picks. Call Deshaun. Let's get on the phone with him right now. Let's figure this out. That's what I'm doing. If I'm running Denver, that's what I'm doing right now. And I'm trying to get him by the weekend. By the weekend. I literally would be like, yo, what do y'all want for this cat? Well, we're thinking, you got it. What do you want? 3 first-round picks? You got it. You got it. Why? What's the risk? What is the risk? There is no risk. The lawsuits he's dealing with right now, those are civil lawsuits. It's not a criminal thing. That's off the field. I think in this case, yes, you understand he's dealing with some shit, but also that didn't make him a worse football player. That doesn't make him less athletic. That doesn't make his arm any less strong. Shit. And I mean, hey, give the guy a happy home, and who stands to benefit the most from having him? Denver absolutely could use that right now. I think that is a move that, I mean, it should go without saying. Look, Aaron Rodgers is a different situation for these cats. Aaron Rodgers is a quarterback who is Aaron Rodgers' situation is different because at the end of the day, even if he doesn't play this year, he's not getting traded. They're not going to do it. They're not going to do it because for people on the other side in the executive level of these football teams, we have seen over the past few years that players have been able to kind of start bending the path of, or the decisions of, football teams to their will. Players with enough clout, with enough power, with enough leverage, players who got enough money in their contracts have been able, and players who actually will cost a lot to get rid of in a negative way, where you can't replace them with other players at all because of the penalty that you take on the cap. So players have started to be aware, more self-aware, in the fact that they can actually call the shots if they want to go to that extreme. Now, there is a big cost at doing that. There's a big cost of doing that. The relationship with the franchise, the relationship with your, I wouldn't say so much the relationship with your teammates, but if it gets to a certain point where it's literally something that is a monumental distraction for the weekly preparation of teams, then the relationship with the players can become, it can become volatile. But there is literally the ability for a player who has the lion's share of the cap for any team to actually make the team do what he wants. But in Aaron Rodgers' situation, it's much harder than that, Because if this team gives into him, well, these guys have huge egos too. These executives have huge egos. These owners have huge egos. And they would never, or they in most cases would never want to allow themselves to be at the mercy of the player. They will not trade Aaron Rodgers. It won't happen because they don't want to look like he defeated them, because he's been telegraphing this for over a year now, that he doesn't like what's going on in Green Bay. He's been telegraphing it. May not have been coming out and saying it verbatim, but he's been telegraphing it in a number of different ways. And, you know, even in him kind of trying to placate the situation by, you know, talking in general PC terms, when talking to guys like Pat McAfee, you know, and other media members of the media, and just kind of being PC, being really politically correct, and not just staying neutral and trying not to show that he's disgruntled. I mean, that shit is out the bag now. We all know he don't want to be there. We know that, but it's a moot point. He's gonna have to retire to not play for Green Bay, or just get fined every day that he's not there. And I mean, shit, at a certain point, I mean, you can get fined enough to where your entire contract, your entire paragraph 5 is gone. You can get fined enough. Every day you don't show up to a practice during the regular season, that's $60,000. Multiply that times 7, and then multiply that times 6 months, which, I mean, I don't even want to guess how many weeks. You know, I guess what, 20 or 28 weeks? What? My math is off. Well, no. 18 weeks for the regular season, but also 3 weeks for the preseason, and also like another 4 weeks for OTAs. So, you know, in the OTA sessions, I think those are $30,000 a day if you don't show up. Well, no. I'm sorry. That's not, because it's not mandatory. It used to be, but OTAs are not mandatory, so you can't get fined for those. But, you know, 18 weeks out of that season, when you're getting paid, you get fined every day of each of those weeks. So that's a lot of money. 24 weeks, something like that. I don't know. Fuck it. But it's a lot of money. I don't think that Aaron Rodgers is willing to actually sit out and lose that kind of money. He'll retire. If he doesn't get traded and he is truly about that life, like he acting like he is right now, he'll retire. He'll pull a Barry Sanders. He'll pull a Megatron. He'll just be like, fuck it, I'm done. I'm going to go host Jeopardy this season. I'm going to go host, which honestly, he'd probably make at least half of that money back. So, you know, if I were him, you know, those are your two options. You either go play, which, you love football. You know, it may not be the ideal situation. You may hate it, but do you love football? Do you love your teammates? Do you want to, you know, if you're not playing for the people in the franchise, if you're not playing for the people in the front offices and the people who are making the decisions, you play for your teammates, because that's all you got when you're out there. It's y'all on the field. So you're going to play for them, which at the end of the day, I would not be, if I was a teammate of his and he decided I'm not going to play this year, I'm going to retire. Look, I can't get mad at that. I can be disappointed, but I can't get mad at him. He knows, we have done too much, as players, and I say this as a former player, but in the mindset of a player there in the moment, we work too hard. You know, we work too hard for ourselves. You know, as individuals, we work so hard to come together as a team and to play and to try and win games. And knowing that this is, you know, for people's livelihoods, that this is how you're going to provide for your family. I can't get mad at a guy for making a decision based on what he thinks is best for his family. I can't get mad at that. I can't get mad at that. That's your decision to make. And, you know, we got to live with the results. We got to live with however it plays out, because, you know, things don't always go as planned. And I mean, what is his name? What is his name? Something Love? Jordan Love. Jordan Love. I mean, he's a young cat. I mean, he's had a year to sit down, learn from Aaron. I really hate the way that these fucking sports writers are talking about an OTA practice as if that's a true insight into the kind of talent that a guy like that is going to have, or his ability to actually be a good quarterback, which none of us know. None of us know how good Jordan Love can be. But I hate when they already are setting that narrative that this kid is already struggling. Oh, he struggled in the practice. Man, stop. To me, that's bullshit. Because now they're piling on. They're taking this guy and they're going to start applying pressure to his life, applying pressure to his psyche by writing stories, kind of trivializing his abilities on the field, which is garbage. You don't do that. You don't do that you don't do that when you know that this cat has not even he ain't even been on the field. He's not even a starter. Like, why would you even go there with it? That makes no sense. But of course, it's something to read. It's something negative, and we all know negativity sells in the media world today. I mean, it always has, but even more so today because it spreads around like wildfire in an instant, and then people's perceptions of you are created in an instant, which is a problem for a young player, and that's something that can have a negative effect on their career. It is. I think that there's a lot of the media that don't give a fuck about that because their ratings and their clicks and their likes are far more important. So they're worried about being first and being bold instead of being right and being measured. And I think that to me has always been an issue with the media. But it's even worse because now there's so many people who can get that information out there in an instant that, sometimes they just start shooting off. They see one bad pass. Oh, he's having a terrible fucking day. My God. Unless you're Tim Tebow, because we've seen that pass. That's a meme now, his pass. The drop back in warm-ups where the ball just literally duck flops 10 yards and rolls out of bounds. But anyways, no, Deshaun Watson, I honestly think that's the route to go for Denver. I think that they should be working on that. I mean, I would be if I was them. I think that's a good fit for him. I think it'd be a good change of pace for him, a good fresh start. He's going to have to deal with the court stuff, but I mean, at the end of the day, that's going to cost some money. So now you have an incentive to go out there and ball out because you might need another contract. You might need one. You might need one. So, those are my thoughts on Deshaun Watson and his situation. And let me see here. Let me take a look at the chat. Let's see. I see. Uche, how would you fix the so-called Rooney Rule? Okay, so I don't have a problem talking about that for a minute. Let's talk about the Rooney Rule in the NFL. I'm going to assume that everybody understands what the Rooney Rule is, so I'm not going to explain it. I'm not going to explain exactly how it works because, I mean, it's basically affirmative action in the football world. Now, honestly, that's a question that I think a lot of well-intentioned people have thought about how to make the Rooney Rule work in the best way possible. But in all honesty, I just don't think that the Rooney Rule is something that can be effective because you're trying to apply a static, unmoving option into a world where there's so many moving parts and there's so many different dynamics and so many different scenarios that come to fruition mainly through relationships in the NFL, just like in most industries, whether it be sports, whether it be corporate, whether it be politics, all of these things actually value the relationship more, to a certain extent, more than actual experience and actual knowledge and actual and true value from that knowledge. There's not there that's where the system kind of gets broken. I think that with the Rooney Rule, you are literally giving a bare minimum to franchises and who they actually can interview for, coaching positions. And the thing is that a lot of people who coach in the NFL are coaching because they knew somebody in an organization who opened the door for them to get in. And maybe they didn't start as a coach, but maybe they started as a quality assurance guy, and then they moved up and they were given a position coaching spot, and then they moved up and got a coordinator, and then they moved up and got a head coach. But a lot of times that is directly attributed to the relationship that person had with somebody within the organization. So it's hard to actually measure what efficiency the Rooney Rule can have when you have 5 guys who may be going in for an interview for a head coaching position. Well, 2 of the guys are connected to the general manager, or maybe, coordinator or even potentially the owner. And these 2 guys have a past with the owner or the GM or whomever in the franchise that actually has clout in decision making. And then you have, let's say, the 3rd guy you have is a minority coach who's interviewing, and then you have 2 other guys. I mean, you can paint these however you want, but if you're saying that you got to have at least 1 minority interview, well, if you have that minority guy in there, if he's going up against 2 guys who actually have relationships with the franchise itself, by default, his chances of being hired are far less. So when you continue that cycle where you're bringing in guys who are, you're bringing in the minimal 1 minority option, well, even if you brought in 2, they'll always have a harder time being hired as compared to somebody who has a relationship. It's not about how much experience you got. It's about who you know. We all saw it happen with Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow is not on the Jacksonville Jaguars because he's good enough to necessarily be signed to them as a free agent. The vast portion of where that decision to bring him on comes from is because of his relationship with the head coach. Now, the head coach can vouch for him all he wants. Players and coaches can come out and say all these nice things, which anyone who understands the culture knows that those are mandatory things that they have to say. They would not come out and talk bad about Tebow. And the person who does, if he's not a guy with clout and pull on that team at the highest levels in the locker room, then he probably ain't going to be there very much longer, because now you've created another layer of potential distraction by saying, well, this guy sucks. Why is he here? Well, now they're going to start asking questions about that in the media. They're going to start asking the head coach about that. And that's going to be a subject of a topic of discussion for months to come. And it would have sparked from that player coming out and speaking against them. That's something that we are taught. That's something we're trained not to do. You don't create another distraction. So you don't talk bad, and you give as general an answer as possible without waving too far one way or the other. And you're generally going to be safe if you do that. You got to be politically correct. You have to be very diplomatic in your answers when it comes to the status of other players based on skill. You can't throw your guy under the bus like that. So guys, of course, are going to come out and say, oh, he's good, this and that. But he made his connection and got onto that team. He would not have called any other team in the NFL for a tryout because they would have been like, no. Simple as that. They would have been like, no, not gonna. We don't need you. Appreciate you though. We'll keep an eye out. We'll keep your film. We'll keep your workout film. So there is, that's something that will always trump a rule that tries to set a balance to, coaches and personnel in the NFL. That's a rule that's something that will always trump that rule, because it actually transcends the rule sets, and it's something that you can't measure outside of the simple fact of that connection between the player or the coach and the organization, because there's a familiarity there that will always be looked at as an easier thing to nurture and develop than bringing in someone who is going to be a cold turkey new hire who doesn't have any kind of place in the franchise, either as a former player or as a coach who coached with someone in the franchise for many years, and that person can kind of vouch for that hire. These are all things that always that are always going to play in the favor of the relationship. There's so many different trees of relationships in the NFL. Different coaches who come from this certain coach's tree, his family tree of coaches, like Bill Belichick, Matt Patricia. Those are guys who were, I forget the other guy, the defense coordinator, the black guy from way back when they were winning titles, the offense coordinator who went on to coach, be the head coach of Notre Dame. These are all guys who have more, who are more likely to hire as they go around and they're head coaches at different spots. They're going to hire guys who are associated with that tree. They'll be easier to hire than to bring in new guys. When I was in Jacksonville, Gus Bradley, first-time head coach, no experience at head coaching, no experience at staffing a coaching staff. So everybody on that coaching staff had a personal relationship. At the end of the day, they all had a personal relationship with Gus Bradley, 90% of them. They had all coached with him somewhere else, and they were brought to the NFL, even if they didn't have NFL experience. So you see right there, that's just proof that once you get to that point, that's what you lean on to make decisions in new environments. It's much harder to do that with someone who is not connected. And that's where the Rooney Rule really fails, because it could never actually work because of the culture that's already there. You can't change the culture with a rule. You have to change the culture by building a new culture. And I think that's why for me, I've always kind of been, I'm not against I'm not against the notion, and I'm not against the actual intent of a rule that helps balance the ability for minority coaches to see more hires in the NFL. But I also realize that in real time, when you try to apply it in real time, it just does not work in the way that it's intended to. It can't. It just doesn't have that lane to actually operate in where it does work. It's just not something that I see happening in the NFL, especially, and really in any sport, because they all kind of fit that way. Relationships in all walks of life are sometimes worth more than the money that they can produce. So you would rather have people just, it's, I guess at the end of the day, a coach's talent can only really be measured by the amount of success they had in places that they coached. So, you just kind of got to take their word that they're looking at the best option for them, I guess. I mean, that's just kind of the way it is. This is kind of the way it is. So would it be better for a player association to work with players that retire into getting into coaching at the lower levels to build those connections as scouts and that sort of thing? Yeah, I think that those are things that largely are built by the player. The player who has a coach. Like, for instance, if I wanted to get into coaching in the NFL, I already know who I could hit up. I already know multiple coaches who I could hit up. And that would be my avenue to try and get in. I know that even if they're looking and they're looking to hire a coach, and I want to apply for that position, I know I can hit up a coach who will help me have a better chance of getting that position. Doesn't mean that I'm going to get it, but I'll have a better chance. And if my credentials are strong enough, that will probably be what puts me over the top. Is that there's a familiarity. And it would be an easier transition for me to assimilate into that coaching staff because of my relationship with this coach or that coach. These are things that really you do that. I mean, you kind of know that that's an option as a player if you decide to go that route. I actually spoke with one of my old teammates, Gerald Alexander, and we were teammates in Jacksonville for I think 4 years. And, he actually went through that process. He got put in with coaching gigs at the college level with coach because he had relationships. And then he got, he got a chance in the NFL because of a relationship. Now, he's an excellent coach. He's a very detailed coach, detail-oriented. He understands the game. He's always had a coach-like mentality, even as a player. But now he's in Miami as their defensive back coach. And I think, he's going to do wonderful. I think he's been doing wonderful because he's a guy who truly does get the game of football. And he understands it from a coaching side and a player side, which is even a bigger bonus. He understands philosophy of football, which is a big bonus. I think that there are also some guys who have relationships with coaches and they get hired and they're terrible. There's no doubt that happens as well. They're not good coaches. They don't understand football the way that you need to understand it to have your guys out there playing their best. So it's crazy. It's crazy because there's really not an answer. that is the best I can give you, in that the relationships are always going to give favor over just purely credentials. Because then, there's a much more skeptical take from the franchise because they don't know you. So you have to kind of prove it more. But once they know you, they know what you can do. They know what you're capable of. They know how your style is. They feel comfortable with that. And people that you bring in who also have that similar type of style because you know them, they'll have an easier chance getting in. But, I'm going in circles here. But that is going to be it for me today, guys. I really do appreciate everybody for being in here. Make sure you smash that like button if you haven't already done so. And if this is your first time being here on my channel, welcome. I am your observant lineman, Uche Nwaneri. I appreciate you guys very much. Hope everyone has a wonderful, wonderful evening. I will catch you all on the next live stream. Oh, sorry, accident. I will catch you all on the next live stream. Should be tomorrow. Probably won't be Friday because I got somewhere to go. But I do appreciate you guys. Hope y'all have a good one. I will catch you on the next one. Peace.